Welcome back to another great episode of Deac2Deac. In this episode, I sit down with pro tennis player Noah Rubin. Noah had a great freshman year. It included being named ACC Rookie of the Year, ACC Player of the Year, and representing Wake Forest and playing for a national championship in tennis. His freshman year has such an impact, he decided to leave to become a pro tennis player. Now, since becoming a professional tennis player, Noah has started his own podcast called Behind the Racket, where he gives an inside look into being a part of the pro circuit. He also talks about his favorite Deacon moment and much more. Take a listen and go Deeks. With us, Noah, how's it going, man?
Good. Thank you for having me. And I got close to Roger Federer, almost beat him, almost. But no, it was yeah, it's fun to look back on these moments awake. So I'm excited.
So Noah, I want to back up a little bit so everyone can kind of get an idea of where you're from.
Mhm.
So talk about that. So where are you from? How did you grow up?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Long Island, New York, and yeah, people call me a true New Yorker, a true, Northeastern. I will never ever leave. I will always have a place here. This is my home. I had basically, I mean, my family really truly wanted me to be cultured, but tennis was at the heart of a lot of it. Being from New York, you have music, you have culture, you have style, and other sports as well, which I played, but tennis was tennis. Tennis was kind of my world for a long time. And especially when I turned down at around 12, 13 is when I stopped playing soccer. It wasn't that tough of a decision, besides the fact that I absolutely loved playing soccer and I still do today. But it was just this idea that now this is my path. Tennis is going to be my future. Let's see what we can do with it.
How did you know? Like, what happened during soccer that made you say, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm putting this down. I'm focusing on tennis.
It was yeah, it wasn't that easy a decision. Like I said, I loved being on a team, and tennis is the complete opposite, is an island all to myself. I rose up the rankings fairly early. I played my first tournament when I was 7 years old, and by the time I was 11, I won basically one of the world championships. First time I left the U.S. alone without my family, it was to Canada, and then by 13 years old, I finaled what was at that time basically considered the world championships, called La Petitas in Tarbes, France. And so at that time, here I am, looking at that. And from about 11, 12 years old to 18, I was top five in the world for my age group. And that from then on, I was kind of understanding, like, even if I didn't really get what a professional tennis player was, I knew that that was something I wanted to be, and I learned fairly quickly what it was, and that was my dream. That was my dream all along. I just didn't really know what it took to get there.
So you're pursuing this dream now. And when did you get to the McEnroe Academy? And what was that like?
I like saying that McEnroe came to my academy. So my father actually taught me how to play tennis from the day I was born, and basically throughout my junior career. But he knew he needed some outside help, and he took me to a man named Lawrence Klager, who still helps me today, at the Sport Time Academies in New York. So it was basically a club. There was about 12 of them, and then when I was about 6, 7 years in, McEnroe came in and took over about half those clubs and made them his academy. So I was already there for a time. That was my home already. And then here's this big shot coming in. But it was nice to have a name for it. It brought some great buzz around the place. And yeah, but I mean, I still spend time there every once in a while when I'm home.
Now, you want to talk about buzz around the place. From what I understood, McEnroe called you the most talented player they had ever come across. Is that true? And if it is, what was it like getting that praise from such an iconic player?
Sadly, wasn't to my face. I don't know if he would be that nice to say it to my face, but yeah, no, it was unbelievable reading that. This was kind of really right before I was going to Wake at around that time. This is when I won a junior Wimbledon title, and when I won basically, which was the national title for us at the time, in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So yeah, I mean, I had a lot of confidence at that point. I was excited yet nervous to see what the next path was going to be. This was kind of around the point where, tennis players, since they don't have to go to school necessarily, this is when you're starting to decide what's the right path. And for tennis players is, some have gone, but for the ranking point that I was at, and some of the endorsement deals I could have gotten, most people are like, you have to go pro. I mean, that's the path to take, and obviously I ended up not.
So how did you come to that decision that, now is not the time to go pro, but also come to the conclusion that Wake is where you want to go for that time before you turn pro?
Yeah, not easy questions. At that point, again, there was a lot of positivity, but here I am, and my parents, my father, who was helping me, he's like, "So what's happening here? What's the next step?" And it was tough. I mean, looking at school as a whole, I have my mom who's been a teacher her whole life. I have my father who really um, he was looking for the right path in tennis, but he also cared about my grades heavily and wanted to make sure that I wasn't skipping any levels in terms of being a person and a tennis player. And that's what I tell a lot of people today was, understand that you are better than a level. Don't guess, go through it and see if you're ready to come out the other side. And for me, I didn't like guessing. I wanted to make sure that I conquered each step of tennis along the way. I did it as a junior. College was the next best bet before taking that huge stride into being a professional. That was the easy choice. The toughest choice was, okay, now we're going to school. Where in the world am I going to school? It was I'm an East Coast guy, so that kind of cut the cut the map in half a little bit immediately. Um, and then looking at it, obviously at the time, UVA was kind of a powerhouse in terms of tennis. I mean, they were known across the board for many years. They were basically, for lack of a better term, easily taking out the ACC conference and making national title contentions almost every year in singles and in the team event. At that point, I knew most of those guys. I played juniors with them, and I was like, it's just too congested for me. I wanted to come into Wake Forest. I wanted to make a name for the program a little bit. They were around, I think, 33 in the country at the time. I heard incredible things about Tony Bresky, who was actually working under the head coach at UVA. And then he went to Wake Forest, and I had actually friends that went to Wake Forest, and they said you had to come. I mean, this is the place. And for me, it was a culture shock, being an East Coast guy, and I remember making this call to both, basically a breakup call to UVA, and then the acceptance call, which was much better, to Wake Forest. And yeah, it was a lot to handle, especially on my shoulders. Everybody's like, you do what you want to do now. And I was like, I don't know what I want. It's so tricky to make these decisions. It was like that. I mean, most people, I would say, quote unquote, the normal kid had months to, prepare and look at schools and stuff. And I took official visits, but it was just like, okay, now you're visited for a weekend. Are you coming? Like, is this it? So once I made that decision, I can breathe. And from Kalamazoo, I actually got the wild card to the US Open, which got me 2 weeks late to school, so I didn't even get to pick my classes. Um, but it was a great year, and I don't regret it. Actually, if anything, I regret not going a second year.
Well, what was it? Like you said, you're an East Coast guy, a New
Yeah.
York. So what was it about Wake that was the tipping point to say, "Hey, this is where I want to be"? I know you had some friends and some other things, and you didn't want to be a part of the congestion there at
Mhm.
UVA. But what was it about Wake that made you say, "You know what? I want to try this"?
I think it was a real family environment. That was like the initial response that I got, was that if we don't have the answers for you, we'll get the answers for you, and we'll help you along the way, no matter what you need. And that was something that I kind of took with me my whole life prior to picking schools. So that really shed a light on really what I wanted. I'm not saying UVA didn't have that necessarily, but that was the initial impact that Wake gave me, was this is family, this is home, and we're going to do whatever we can to make you feel like that. So that was really it. Yeah, I mean, the friends, at Wake, or some of the coach that I knew and everything like that, was great. But that was really it. It was that, with also, I wanted to create my own legacy through Wake. I wanted to really, bring Wake to where I knew they could be, and where they are today.
Wow, that is great, and you have done a great job of creating your legacy. So I got to ask, what was the culture shock Like, what was the big thing that you were like, wow, okay, I'm not in Kansas anymore?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I traveled my whole life, but like really engulfing myself in a culture for that amount of time, I've never really done. I mean, straight off the bat, country music is to this day is going to be a problem. I mean, my girlfriend still tries to get me into it every once in a while, but it's, we're both still not quite sold on it. And then I just remember it's got to be around the first week or so. I was going to class, I had my headphones in, and somebody basically was waving and, stopped me for a second. I took off my headphones. I was like, "Hey, can I help you or anything?" They're just like, "No, just have a great day. Have a blessed day." I remember that, and I was like, "Oh, thanks. Like, I really appreciate it." And went on my way. And I was like, "What?" I mean, in New York, I mean, maybe asking for directions, maybe they're lost, maybe I dropped my wallet or something. That's never happened to me. Where literally they just wanted to stop me and say, "I hope you have a great day." And I was like, thank you. I really appreciate that. So the niceness of everybody, it took a second.
Yeah, you definitely have to spend more time in the South and absorbing that culture. So you're at Wake.
Yeah.
It's your freshman year, and again, you come into campus late. Kind of talk about how that year as a tennis player and as a student for you. How did that year sort of start off for you?
It was hitting the ground running. Like I said, I came in a little late. For me, I was doing school online since I was a freshman. I did my freshman year public school, and then after that, it was all online. So here I am thinking, like, do I have to raise my hand? Like, do they still do that in real class? And having that and being and actually a part of it. This is some of my classes. I remember I had lit, American lit, which was like basically 10 people around a table. I had to participate, I had to speak, which I was fine with. But again, it was a little bit out of my comfort zone for a while. I mean, I was, doing class and I had a tutor, and, I was trying to get through that. And now here I am again, having class in person, raising my hand, seeing people next to me. It was a lot to take in. Um, and again, it was my first time that I really felt. I mean, people are going to make fun of me and say there's no way, but there was a pretty even balance between schooling and athletics. I mean, I know other places do it differently, but I really felt that it was a good combination, probably more schooling than I would have wanted at that point in time. But I did enjoy a lot of my classes, and it took a second to get into it.
How did it feel that year to go through this process of being a huge cornerstone to seeing the program really take some major steps forward that year? What was that like going through that process of seeing that program really grow and being a part of it?
Yeah, I mean, it took about a year even after me to really get to where they are now. I felt immense pressure. I mean, I wanted in the beginning because I wanted that feeling, but once it started, I was like, wow, this is nearly a full university section of the university that's relying on me to kind of bring this to a new light. And with that comes a lot of pressure, because even though it's a team atmosphere, it's really not. Tennis, I have to win my own matches. It's one-on-one. Yes, I play doubles as well, but those matches I had to step up to the plate, and I couldn't lose. I couldn't go. It couldn't be a great year where I went like 10-6 or something like that. It couldn't be one of those. It had to be something out of the norm of what takes place, which was nerve wracking. It's since my soccer days, I never had other players that relied on me for my wins. It was always, if I lose, I take the hit, I move on. But now people are looking at me like, hey, you were five in the world. Don't lose a match. Like, don't lose a match, basically. And it wasn't said, and it was a really friendly environment, but that's what comes in my head, when I have these guys, and you're a freshman and all this stuff where, they're excited for me, but at the same time, they're like, we're kind of banking on you a little bit. This is what we're putting our cards out. And, I think I did well enough. I think I carried the torch. I tried, but it helped. I mean, we really did have a tremendous team just in terms of people. I really liked the people that were part of it. It helped me through some of those situations that I had trouble with at times, because it was new, um, territory for me. So, and these are some of my closest friends to this day. And, it kind of, it helped me through. And, I don't love thinking about it. It was disappointing to be a few points away from the national title and give that up. And would have been great to be, that first guy, but it didn't happen that way. And I'm glad, we're here today.
But that was still a great accomplishment. I mean, I don't want you to, blow past playing for a national championship. I mean, you had taken us to a place that we had not been before. And so, do you think winning the Wimbledon title as a junior, uh, do you think that helped prepare you some for the pressure? Because that's like the mecca of tennis, and to be at that on that court and to win, and I think it was 2014. What was that
Yeah.
had to prepare you for those moments like that at Wake?
I mean, of course, I mean, the cumulative, effect of all these tournaments that I played as a junior that I played in front of, 5,000, 10,000 people. But I'd like to say no, it didn't prepare me. I'm playing for other people. It's the first time in a very long time, besides if I had a coach with me at these junior tournaments, that I was playing for somebody else. And I liked playing for a name. I liked playing for a team, not just Noah Rubin. And that was different pressure. And that took some time to get used to. But it was great, having them cheer me on. I remember my favorite was playing UVA ACCs, where I won and number two Romain Bogarts won. We lost the match, but having that emotion come and us getting pretty close to taking them out, that's the stuff that stays with me.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest with you. As a staff, we were glued to phones and television. We were texting everyone. I mean, we were on top of this match as a staff. I think the entire Deacon Nation was really in tune, and we're extremely proud of the team and your efforts to help, continue to grow that program and to build that solid foundation. So I gotta ask,
Yes.
going into that national championship match,
Mhm.
what was going through your mind? And again, I have to ask you, playing against UVA. So
Yes.
this was the school you had to break up with. So now the one you've broken up with, you're standing there going against her. What was that moment like?
Yeah, I mean, for people that don't know, if you win, basically, it's an unwritten rule, but as an American, you're most likely going to get a wild card into the professional U.S. Open, the men's U.S. Open. So there comes with extra pressure. It comes with potentially extra money and publicity and everything else. So, I was playing well. I beat him at ACCs. And people tell the story a million different ways, but I went up very early on in the match, very quickly, 6-1, feeling good. And I actually went up. I think it was after the first set that's when we went indoors. It actually started raining. We went indoors at this point, and a lot of fans left. I mean, we're talking about I'm playing a national championship in front of maybe 80 people, something like that. And I went up 6-1, 5-3, 30 all on his serve, and just getting a little tight. I mean, that's all it is. The pressure coming down to it. Me understanding that I am 2 points away from doing what I told everybody I was hoping to do, for Wake Forest, for myself, for everybody involved. And I think that was kind of new. Again, I think the pressures of other people, even though it wasn't from them, directly, just me feeling it. I think it waned on me a little bit. And I think, getting into that third set, I think I kind of broke down mentally and physically together, and it was tough. It was sad. And then the worst of the worst was that there was a tornado warning. We were in Baylor. There was a tornado warning. Here I am, gave up the national title, and I have to sit literally 4 inches away from 150 people in this small room saying, "Oh, nice try, Noah. Like those, I'm so sorry for your loss." And I'm like, oh, "Great, guys. Thanks so much."
Well, what was that moment that, as an athlete, we've all gone through those moments where we weren't successful. Maybe we missed the game winning shot for the championship. What got you out of bed the next day to continue to say, I'm going to keep getting better? What was it that didn't allow you to say, you know what, I lost the next championship, I'm not doing this? What kept you continue to fight to get better?
I think it's, Wake kind of thanked me. It was the contingent said, look what you did. You lost, two or three matches the whole year. You got us to a place. I forgot where we ended up. I think around 9 in the country or something like that. That we haven't been in many, many years. You did things that no player on the team has ever done. And just think about where this program could be in a few years, and that's going to be because of a lot of your help. with that being said, I think after a few days, I realized that, I felt confident, that I felt like in one way or another, I conquered my own vision of college tennis, that I was ready to go pro. It wasn't initially a happy ending because I actually played my a professional tournament 2 weeks later, and I literally lost the same score, being up 6-2, 5-2, serving for the match, and lost it again at that point. And I told myself, oh, great, you said you were never going to do this ever again. But, at that point, I had college instilled a lot of confidence in me that I did. I conquered that level. I felt ready to take on the next stage. And I had a new family surrounding me and supporting me.
So would you say that setback was a set up for, going to the next level?
I do. I don't want to say that winning that title, would have ruined my career, because I don't think that would be the case. I would have been nice to have that trophy on my mantle, instead of that other color trophy that I have now. But yeah, I think it just continually motivated me. I think it gave me that next day to say, hey, we're not going to mess around now. Like, yeah, you conquered tennis, but you still lost matches. Like, there's still guys that were in college that could beat you on any given day. Put in the effort, put in the time, you're there, but we have to make those next strides.
So you leave Wake, you're turning pro. Um, what was that first moment like where you have this, hey, welcome to the tour? What was that welcome to the tour moment? Because you have them in you may hear it in the NFL, you have that welcome to the NFL moment. You have
Right.
those. What was that welcome to the tour moment for you?
Yeah, mine's a little bit different. I mean, tennis is super tricky. I mean, I played professional events before I went to school. You can do that with not taking money, and you're still eligible. There's all these different rules where you're not walking into a Cowboys game and just dressing up and going on the field. So it's a little bit different than that. So that was like kind of my initial one when I actually qualified for my first pro tournament on my 15th birthday. So I got that welcome when I saw 30-year-old guys playing for $450. That was my welcome to the tour early on. Was, hey, you at the lowest level of professional tennis, which is players from 500 to 1,000 in the world. You're playing for $500 maybe, and that's before expenses, and that's before paying your team. um, After school, it actually took some time. I mean, I actually did very well the first 6 months. I moved about 100 ranking spots every month for about 10 months. I went from no ranking to 160 in the world. I Ironically, my first professional challenger title was at UVA, out of all places. It had to be at a college campus, of course, and then it had to be at UVA. I mean, you couldn't even name the chances. I played 3 rounds of qualifying, won 3 matches, and then won 5 matches in the main draw. Um, and this was kind of my reckoning. This is my reckoning for the finals. I was actually losing 6-3, 5-1 match point in the finals, about to lose this title. This was my first opportunity. I came back and won 6-3 in the third, won that second set 7-6. That got me a wild card into the Australian Open. I then beat a guy who was top 20 in the world. And here I am at 160 in the world, a few months out of school. So, that was pretty incredible. But it wasn't until my first few injuries off the tour, taking some time off. People don't realize you're not under contract with anything. If you're injured, you're not playing, you don't get ranking points. So, you're just taking the hit. So me being 160, my ranking's back to 300 in the world, and I have to fight my way up playing different tournaments. Then I started to really figure out what being a professional tennis player meant, the trials and tribulations, the emotional effect, and it took me to a dark place. I dealt with depression, anxiety, but it led me to kind of where I am today with some of my creations like Behind the Racket. Um, and I'm still competing today, but it's shown me the true colors of tennis, and a sport that I love so dearly, how difficult the system actually is.
Speaking of Behind the Racket, that's a great segue into that. So, for those who may not know, Behind the Racket is a podcast that you started, and if you don't mind, take some time, sort of sharing what Behind the Racket is as a podcast, and your vision and what you want it to be, what it is, not what you want it to be, but what it
Yeah.
is.
So, through my kind of depression and anxiety, I was like, there's no way I'm the only one dealing with this. I was pretty open about things, but there's no way other people aren't dealing with it. We all have the same circumstances. And once seeing it, I figured out that I'm not. There's many other players that deal with it. on a daily basis and deal with it in their own ways. Some is alcohol abuse, some narcotics, some is just depression and anxiety, and they have no outlet. And I wanted to give them that outlet. I wanted them to share their story, feel like it's a safe place to talk, break that stigma of mental health and opening up about it, and then build that relationship between the fan and the player a little bit deeper. So yeah, I created, basically it's on all social media platforms and a website, and then the podcast was kind of that last segue for Behind the Racket, and it just allows me to open up. It allows fans to see players open up, whether they're 500 in the world, or I've had top 10 players be on it as well. It shows them not just as superheroes, but dealing with the mental health struggles that everybody else deals with. So it's been an incredible journey for me, and to see that in one way or another that I'm hopefully affecting lives. I mean, that's something that I feel a responsibility now, and it's exhausting at times, but it keeps me going.
I caught a few of your episodes actually behind the racket, and one jumped out at me. And you were having this discussion about do you? I think the question was, do you have to win as a tennis player to make a impact in terms of social issues and those things? And I wanted you, if you don't mind, sharing your
Yeah.
perspective on that.
It's difficult. I think we're in a, we're in this time of social media where, in one way or another, you can use this term as broadly as you want. You have to have followers. You have to have a following. I mean, it's great to have a great mouth to something and the ideas, but if you don't have somebody on your team breaking down a few extra doors, it's going to be really tough. Not saying you can't break down your own doors. It's just a tougher journey to get there. So yeah, I mean, we've seen kind of some of the players nowadays, Naomi Osaka, Coco Gauff, Francis Tiafoe, taking some of those stands. They have the following already. Coco Gauff is a worldwide name at this point, and at her young age, it's incredible, just like the rest of them. So, but she has millions of people looking at what she's doing each and every day. I'm not saying what she's doing is made easier. I'm just saying getting eyes on the page is made easier just because of her success. Um, but again, I mean, people would call me in some terms unsuccessful in terms of tennis. They would like to see me at top 15 in the world, where I'm not at right now. But with that being said, I've made an impact in tennis through Behind the Racket, through some of the other things that I've done, by just being kind of a loudmouth New Yorker in a lot of ways, and kind of banging on the door every once in a while and saying, "Hey, I'm here. Listen to me," because there's people lives at stakes, and that's kind of what I've done. So, I'm not saying what Coco or Francis has done is any easier or tougher. It's scary what they're doing. But with that being said, I think to put my stuff in front of more people's eyes took a lot more work on my part.
That's great, man. Again, I enjoyed listening to Behind the Racket, and so I enjoyed that, especially that episode. It really stuck with me. So I want to talk about life on the tour for a second. What has that been like during this pandemic and quarantine, and what are some of the adjustments you've had to make as a tennis player as well as just as a person?
There's probably too much to go into for this podcast, but overall, and this is kind of what I said before we started recording, was tennis is one of the best sports recreationally. As spoken about early on in the pandemic, is you're on opposite sides, just don't touch the ball of the opponent and you'll be fine. But professionally, it's the worst because we aren't geographically centralized in any location. I actually went to Paris during the pandemic. I had to fly to Paris somehow. So and there's players that were traveling Europe, and then we had a few in the U.S. It's a nightmare. It kind of shed a light on how difficult it is for tennis to evolve, especially if it's hit with a speed bump. You know, Hopefully we don't have another pandemic, but there will be issues in the next 10 years. That's just how life works, and I just don't think tennis is necessarily prepared for it. And this has highlighted that to the max.
So speaking of the tour, so you grow up, you're watching Roger Federer,
Hmm.
and now you're in a match and he's across from you and is 7'5", 6'3". What is that like? When you look up and you see a 6'3", what's going through your head?
Yeah, It was crazy. I mean, the whole tournament was, that was the first time that I actually qualified for the event. So 3 tough matches against, guys that were 90 to 120 in the world. I then beat a friend of mine in 5 sets, which was my first 5 set match, just around, I think, 3.5, 4 hours long. So at that point, I got enough points. I actually had some good cash at that point from that tournament. So all the pressure was off of me. Um, but here I am. I remember before playing the first round match, my friend and I saw the draw that said Roger Federer, qualifier, 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 which doesn't happen too often. And I was like, we both said we want to be one of those qualifier spots that I can play a qualifier so I get one extra round and then play Roger Federer. And that's what I got. And I luckily capitalized on it. And it was, I got to play in front of 15,000 people on Rod Laver Arena against the great Roger Federer. Um, and made him angry. I pissed him off, which was fantastic. I mean, that was like my favorite thing in the world. In the third set, I went up 3-0, screamed, come on. And for 2.5 minutes, he stared me down all the way throughout the TV timeout. And sadly had some set points, went up 5-2, some set points in a tiebreak. Didn't convert on it. Would have loved to see a fourth set, but still an incredible experience.
Did he say anything to you afterwards, after the match?
Yeah, I mean, I was, I knew I was exhausted. It was a long, long week. I don't think I slept the night before. I kind of said it was an honor to share the court with him. He had some great things to say in his press conference about me, which was, truly incredible to see kind of coming out of his mouth. I mean, I practiced with all the other greats or did exhibitions with them. Federer, I never got on the court with in my life. So to see him kind of looked like a hologram of himself in a way. But yeah, that's something that will always stay with me.
Now, there's another professional that you beat, and I want to talk to you about this guy. 6'10" is John Isner, right?
Yes. Yes.
Now, what was that like? And for those who may not know, he is recorded to have the fastest serve. I think he holds the world record, and I think it's at 152 miles per hour, some ridiculous number. What was that like, staring down the pipe of that type of serve?
Yeah, I mean, I've played a few guys around the high. A lot of players are around like 6'4", 6'6". Tennis has kind of changed in that direction. I remember the tournament prior to it, my girlfriend was running on the treadmill, and literally she texted me. She's like, "I'm staring at John Isner right now. Looks so uncomfortable because he's like ducking his head while running on this treadmill to not hit his head on the ceiling." And I got him the next week, which was funny. I mean, I played him at the French Open about a month before, had some chances, had a few set points, didn't convert, and I said to my girlfriend, said to my coach, I was like, I need him again. Just let me play him one more time, and beat out somebody that I played when that I looked up to when I was younger, Mikhail Yuzny, and then I got to play him second round, and a lot of things happened during that match. I'm known as the guy that blew out his shoe. I ran out of shot, and so I got on ESPN top 10 plays, which was a dream of mine always. So I ran down this drop shot from 50 feet back, and they said I ran 22 miles per hour. 2 points later, I broke my shoe, and it literally snapped in half, and I had to get a new pair for my locker. I threw the shoe into the crowd, and then I got my first top 10 win. So a lot of emotion, a lot going on there, but another one that still sticks with me.
So, what did you do with that moment? I mean, that was a great moment. Show you progress and development. I mean, you took down a great player. How did you use that momentum?
The momentum was cut extremely short, and this is another issue with tennis, and these are things people will never know. I actually had to play another match that night. We had enough rain delays where I actually had to play Andrei Rublev, who is right now A in the world right now. I think around 40 in the world at the time. He didn't play a match that day. I played. I got my biggest win of my career. Had to sit there, change, do press conference, and then about 5 hours later, play another match at around 10 p.m. that night. So my momentum was cut short. I remember because my mom was there throughout the day. She got to watch me beat Isner. But I got back to the room. I think still have a Snapchat of it. I got back to the room around 1:45 in the morning. And I was like, what in the world just happened today? I end up losing to Andrei Rublev. I was exhausted, obviously. But within a day, I had all these emotions. So, but yeah, I mean, looking after a few weeks later, I knew that my level was at that point. Even if Isner was a little tired, his game was a little off, I knew that my level of play when I'm playing solid Noah Rubin tennis, I'm a top 50 player.
Wow. So I want to ask, what's your favorite shot?
My favorite shot is probably my backhand down line is probably my favorite shot in tennis. It's the shot that I just love hitting, or anything on the run. Anything on the run is something that's in my playbook.
How would you describe your style of play?
When I'm in my zone and playing Noah Rubin tennis, I think it has to do with being incredibly fit, not backing down regardless of the score. I'm trying to make your life a living hell, but at the same time, I'm coming up with more power on my shots than you can ever expect from a small Jewish 5'9" guy. So I think that's something that people don't expect is my serve. I'm getting at some of the top speeds plus 130. And I think that's something for guys my height that they're not expecting to see.
Is that something you've had to fight against in terms of your height with tennis? Because it's different for different sports, right? So with tennis, how does that factor in, or does it really even factor in? Because you beat a guy that was literally a foot taller than you.
Yeah, it makes me work a little bit harder. I had to fight it in my whole lifestyle of life first. Yeah, I had to find a girlfriend that was shorter than me. That was first of all. So, and then after that, it was more the understanding that these guys, it is changing. I mean, people don't get it. I mean, these guys are 6'5". Like most of them, if you're looking in the top 20, they're all around that height. 5'9" is a little bit shorter. I think ideally for a player right now is in that 6'1", 6'2" range. So there are things I'm going to have to work on, but I would never give up my speed for anything. I love it. My body, aches like a 120-year-old house, but again, that's my life, and that's something I really just have tried my whole life to, capitalize on in any way possible.
I like that. There's a saying, and I've heard a lot in football, that strength punishes, but speed kills.
It does.
And
I embarrass people.
that's great. So what is the funniest thing you've seen on the tour so far?
The funniest thing I've seen on the tour. That's a tough question. God, I think you're looking when you're on the road with some of your friends for 5-6 weeks at a time, and you're kind of getting to this point where you're a little bit hallucinating and you're exhausted and you're traveling, you're having the same meal for 4 weeks straight. I think those are the moments that stick with me. Those are the ones that you're saying like nobody would believe this is the life of a professional tennis player. Nobody would believe these stories that we have, and it's those little laughs. I mean, it's nothing crazy, but it's those little things that will always stick with me.
That's great. So what is your meal that you like to eat on the road?
It's tough when Europeans give me one slice of meat and cheese and they call that a sandwich, and I'm from a New York deli. But yeah, I mean, I think every location I have my meal at this point, and for tennis, the locations don't really change. So once you have your places, once you have your hotels, those are basically the same. So I mean, whether it's I'm in Italy getting my tagliatelle bolognese, or I'm getting my prosciutto parma pizza, or I'm just back in New York getting my deli sandwich. We have the things we go and the places we go to, and it makes it feel like home.
That's great, man. Noah, we've got to get you back to campus. We've got to get you back to visit, spend some time with the guys if you possibly can, just around the program, the athletic program in general. Uh, so I want to ask you this: as you're moving about in life and you continue to grow and being a part of the tour, what are some of the things that you take with you that you learned about yourself or that you take from Wake Forest?
I'm going to go back to this over and over, but it is that family feel, is this idea that no matter how alone you are, you still have people around you supporting you. And, it's going to be tough because I'm always going to feel that loneliness, but it's nice to know that no matter where I am, and if they're a stranger, but if they have that gold WF on them, they're a friend. I can go up to them because it's such a small contingent, that, they're family, and we can, I'm sure, in one way or another, tell a story that we were all a part of in one way or another, or we watched, or, something that was funny. But, that's something that, will always stick with me.
Well, Noah, I don't want to hold you up, man. Thank you for taking the time out to be a part of Deac2Deac. Good luck with everything moving forward. And again, the family, we're here for you. Any last parting words or message for the fellow Demon Deacons out there?
Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult time, and my family makes fun of me for using the word unprecedented over 150 times this year, but it is. I think you have to be patient. Again, there's people around you that really want to see the best for you. There's people like me that are willing to help in any way possible, and I think Wake is a perfect place, to overcome some of these difficulties right now. And and we see the light at the end of the tunnel, and Wake Forest makes it just a little bit brighter.